Episode 2, The Great Bamboo Forest Location, New Delhi, in the middle of the Union Territory of Delhi, north of India, 70 million years after the extinction of mankind. During this time, the warmer climate of the planet has transformed many of the grasslands and deserts of Asia into tropical and subtropical forests. From the east of Pakistan, to the south of the peninsula of Japan and the north of the Australasian mountain range, a huge extension of dense tropical forest composed almost entirely by descendants of tropical bamboo covers the land from the mountains to the coast. This environment is home for a plethora of biodiversity. The rivers, the forest floor and the canopy are all brimming with life, and we are here to get to know these life forms. After a short walk, the first one we find is this little fella. A juvenile golden monkey shrew, is related to the African monkey shrews, and therefore a distant relative of the European shrew. Their ancestors that shared the earth with humans were insectivores, but this species has adopted a generalist omnivore diet, and eats not only small vertebrates and worms but also fruits and seeds. This one is munching on some bitter poisonous berries, not to eat them, but to cover its body with the juice. This will not only keep big predators away, but also parasites. They are around the size of a squirrel and are relatively social animals. Several families can be found living in close proximity to each other, and the younglings play together, while the adults tend to just laze around in the same branches. Sometimes they exchange food with one another. They also rely on the group to detect predators, like snakes or birds of prey. When the animal realizes it's been observed, quickly jumps to a nearby tree and with a loud squeak alerts the rest of the group. They all jump in opposite directions and swiftly climb up on the nearest bamboo branches. Just as many other social species before them, they have developed a proto-language with a vast array of different calls to alert from different treats. Between these calls we can distinguish calls for terrestrial predator, flying predator, snake and rival group approaching. The reaction of the group will be different depending on the menace they are facing. However, this system has its flaws, and some have learned how to exploit those flaws. This is the green reaper, a very smart bird, descendant of Australian insectivorous parrots that arrived to Asia when the two continents collided more than 20 million years ago. The green reaper, unlike its ancestors, targets bigger prey like the river rats, tropical squirrels, and even monkey shrews. To catch them, the predator will slowly approach the group as much as possible, and once close enough it will replicate the call for aerial predator that the monkey shrews use, therefore making the group frantically run to the forest floor. There the bird catches them with its enlarged talons and uses its sharp beak to finish them off. It has been observed to replicate more than 15 different calls from 9 different species of similar arboreal critters. Aside from that, they sometimes imitate the sound of other predators. They do it both to intimidate large herbivores that might disturb their nest or smaller predators that could compete for the same prey. The strategy works, but this male will not eat here. He will bring this to the nest to feed his offspring. Once he arrives, he notices his mate has also caught something for dinner. Tonight the chicks will gorge themselves. The chicks remain with their parents for up to 5 years, which is pretty long compared with other related species. Generally they raise only 1 or 2 chicks at the same time, but they have been observed to take orphan chicks. We continue traveling through the dense vegetation, and after a few hours we find the first inhabitant of this forest that could be classified as megafauna, is a rodent. While their ancestors that shared the planet with mankind didn't grow more than a few hundred grams, this creature's averaged 2 tons in weight, and this particular individual that is a relatively large male on his prime, is probably around 2.5. This is the one true king of the bamboo forest, the euron, a creature that only fear another of its own species. The euron can be found in most of the tropical regions of Asia, but their ancestry can be traced back all the way to South America. 40 million years ago we met the sloth rats, a diverse clade of herbivorous rodents that populated all South American grasslands and tropical forests, with some representatives crossing to North America and successfully establishing and diversifying there as well. However, around 20 million years after that, Alaska and Siberia collided, and after the biotic interchange very few of the sloth rats survived. But the euron managed not only to survive but to quickly adapt to an occupied niche in the bamboo forest. They have not only extremely powerful and muscular jaws with huge molars to grind the tough vegetation, Their index finger is adapted to serve the function of an opposite thumb, and their large and complex intestines allow them to efficiently extract all the energy said vegetation can provide. They feed almost completely in bamboo but from time to time also ingest nuts and worms, especially pregnant females. They are very social animals. The groups are composed by 1 or 2 males and 20 to 30 females. Generally the males are a little bigger than the females. In some cases where the dominant male dies, the older female will take the role of the leader of the group, taking care of marking the territory and keeping away predators, sometimes even mounting the other females. Is unknown if they do it just to assert dominance, for an hormonal imbalance or for pleasure, but it might as well be for all these reasons. They have pretty short pregnancies for an animal their size, about 3 to 4 months, and they give birth to 1 or 2 small pups, around 1.5 kilograms in weight. The babies grab onto their mother's chest and will not leave their mother's side for at least 2 years. The herd is capable to eat from 5 to 8 tons of vegetation every day, and this also means that they produce an enormous amount of excrement. This is good news for a lot of insects, mostly dung beetles. There are many species that inhabit this forest, but one in particular has developed a rather unique behavior. The dwarf Indian dung beetle is an asocial species of beetle, common in all the tropical regions of Asia and Africa. They are relatively small for a dung beetle, measuring between 7 mm and 1 cm, and despite descending from a lineage of rollers, they don't create big balls of dung. Instead they use their front legs as grasping appendages and carry small amounts of excrement flying to their nest. They are a relatively old lineage, having evolved first in Western Africa around 50 million years ago. Most members of the group build their nests as subterranean complex in a similar fashion to ants, but this particular species prefers to build them in trees or rock formations, always at least 2 meters above the ground to avoid other species of dung beetles that might try to invade their nest. There are many insectivores around after all, some monkey shrews, small lizards and even marsupials, like this tiny fella. This is the banar, one of the few marsupials that manage to keep thriving after the biotic interchange between Asia and Australia, is a member of Dasyuromorphia, that has taken a more arboreal lifestyle. They feed on many insects, spiders and worms, but the bulk of their diet is composed by snails. Some of them are even poisonous like the Indian yellow snail, but the banar has developed a high level of tolerance to this toxic delight. Actually, the arm race between the banar and its favorite prey is what has made the snail so poisonous that it could even kill an animal 10 times bigger than the ones that are actually interested in targeting it as a prey. The banar is a tiny and solitary creature not bigger than a hamster, and often falls prey to several species of snake, lizards and even other marsupials. That's why these animals spend a big part of the day hiding inside small burrows or hollow trees, going out to feed either early in the morning or at dawn. They are only active all day during mating season, when the males will spend several hours frantically looking for females while also producing high-pitched sounds to try to attract possible mates and keep away rivals. After mating, the females will give birth to 4 pups the size of grain of rice that will develop in the pouch for at least 3 weeks. Just before we head back to the camp, we notice a small clear in the forest full of pitcher plants. Nearby there is a small river, so it's likely the clear swamps every wet season. A tiny frog calls our attention, with 5 centimeters in length. This is a fully grown adult male of a species known as green mute frog. They can be found all the way from China to the west of Pakistan, living in swampy areas. They can survive hunting small insects on their own just as any tiny frog, but whenever they can they will exploit pitcher plants like these ones. They have a species mucus that covers all their body that allows them to swim for long periods of time inside the cavity of the plant without getting digested themselves. Some frogs have been reported to live for months inside one of these deadly leafy prisons, getting out just once they feel the need to reproduce. After reproduction, the female will lay her eggs in the inner wall of one of these plants, and after a week and a half 5 to 6 tiny froglets will hatch, fully formed, and no bigger than a sunflower seed. Their mother will feed them with unfertilized eggs until they are big enough to eat the unfortunate insects that enter the deadly trap they call home. The green mute frog is not actually mute, but the calls these tiny amphibians use to attract mates are too high-pitched for the human ear to register, making them appear to be mute.